Alright, so here we are. Here's my spoiler video, companion video to my Excalibur #1 review. So let's set up this issue. So we actually start in a place called Otherworld. And for those of you that don't know, in Marvel, Otherworld is where Camelot exists. So, King Arthur and all that jazz. Now, for whatever reason, King Arthur is missing, and Morgan Le Fay is the Queen Regent of Camelot. And Camelot itself is actually besieged by what they refer to as the White Witch. Either way, we see Morgan Le Fay bring her commander, his name is, Lord Garrus, brings her to the magical water, the magical scrying pool of Avalon. And it turns out that the mutants and their Krakoan flowers have somehow tainted and infected this scrying pool of water. When she shoves Sir Garrus's head into the water, you can actually see these like viney growths, down below in the water. So this is a big problem for Morgan Le Fay. So Betsy Braddock arrives in Krakoa after visiting her brother for a short bit, and it's interesting because as soon as she enters Krakoa, someone says, "Hey, Psylocke," and she's immediately correcting people. Please don't call me Psylocke. Please call me Betsy Braddock. And there's a little funny exchange between her and Apocalypse that we'll get to a little bit later. Now, speaking of Apocalypse, what's interesting is he's actually taken like a scientific role in Krakoa. He has this personal study with these weird Krakoan gates in. And it turns out one of these gates that has appeared, they're not able to figure out where does it go, no one can go through it, and no one is coming out of it. And Apocalypse realizes, that, okay, so this doesn't lead to anywhere, any geographic location on this planet. We've checked, it's nowhere on this planet. But this is Apocalypse. Obviously, we learn he's into some magic sorcery type stuff. So he says, maybe not somewhere on this planet or plane, but maybe a different reality. And so he does his Apocalypse science mumbo jumbo to start doing some tests on the portal. The next thing we see is these 5 girls. They're the druids of Solar Blackwood. They're kind of into witchcraft, and they're in this like spooky house. They're doing this symbol, who knows? They seem like amateur sorcerers, but there's obviously a little something going on here, because the spirit of Lord Garrus, the guy who we just saw his face shoved into the scrying pool, appears, and I herald the Morgan Le Fay, and then poof, there she is. And she's telling these druids that, I'm the source of your power, and until you do my bidding, get rid of these gates, then you're not going to have any more access to my power. The main one of these druids, kind of tells everyone, shh, and she speaks up. So indeed, they do seem to be in some service to Morgan Le Fay. So kind of an interesting scene here. I'm certainly not familiar with this, these druids of, the Solar Coven or whatever they call them. But we definitely do see that they are kind of a catalyst to this trap that Morgan Le Fay is, putting in place for Captain Britain. So I didn't touch on this, but, Captain Britain, Brian Braddock, Betsy Braddock's twin brother, he is, of course, Captain Britain, who serves Avalon, Camelot, King Arthur, and so essentially, he is at Morgan Le Fay's beck and call. Now, this next scene I'm going to talk about here is really kind of weird and amusing at the same time. So, an amusing thing about this is, remember Gold Balls? Volsker and I talked about him extensively. He is one of the 5 and is essential for this, resurrection ceremony. Well, he finds Betsy and is like, oh boy, I'm glad you're here. There's really something I need you to help with. So, I mentioned Brian Braddock, who is, of course, Captain Britain. He is not a mutant. Of course, his twin sister, Betsy Braddock, is. There is another Braddock sibling. His name is Jamie Braddock, and he is a mutant. He went down the wrong path and was dead, but now he's been resurrected, much to Betsy's surprise. However, it's kind of strange. He's just kind of chilling in his cocoon, chilling in his egg. And Gold Balls, says, it takes, we allow them recovery time, but it takes 10 minutes at the most for people to come out of their cocoon. And he's been doing some weird stuff in there, and we need this area to be clean. So could you please get him out? So obviously this Jamie Braddock person is a bit on the ridiculous side. But also of note, another amusing thing about this particular scene is that Gold Balls is no longer Gold Balls. He tells Betsy Braddock that he now goes by Eggs. And, she even comments like, oh, like that's gonna stick. But nonetheless, so Gold Balls is officially no more. We now have Egg. That aside, Betsy does find out from her brother Jamie that he doesn't want to leave Krakoa. She's like, oh my God, Brian's gonna love to see you and see that you're alive. And he's like, no, I'm not gonna hang around with any more humans. Our parents were humans, and they abused us and blah blah blah. So I'm just gonna hang out with mutants. This upsets Betsy, but there's not really anything she could do about it. So after a little spat between Betsy Braddock and Jamie Braddock, Apocalypse calls Betsy Braddock to his personal study. And what's funny is when he does this, and he kind of just comes across her as she's storming around Krakoa, again upset at the fact that Jamie doesn't want to see Brian and isn't going to leave Krakoa. But he says, hey, hey Psylocke. And she's like, oh, for the love of God, call me Betsy, Apocalypse. And he's like, oh, well, actually, don't call me Apocalypse. Call me this A symbol that they have in the comic. So apparently he insists that he also be called by a different name, which is, I guess, Apocalypse in Krakoan language. However that's supposed to sound. Either way, though, he explains to Betsy that, after some study, they are pretty sure they know where this particular portal leads, but there's a barrier that's preventing them from, going to the other side. So they need the amulet that her brother Brian Braddock has, which is the way he's able to go between our Earth and other world. And seeing as how Betsy just got over a tiff with Jamie because he wouldn't go see Brian, she is more than happy to go and get her brother and bring him here to Krakoa. Alright, so now Betsy, of course, was just told by Apocalypse that she needs to go get her brother so that Apocalypse can use his amulet and figure this whole gate otherworld thing out. But instead, she goes to visit her brother, learns that he's getting ready to go to otherworld, that he's being beckoned there. Knowing what Betsy knows, she tells him, Brian, I think you're about to step into a trap, so let me suit up and go with you. And that's exactly what they do. They go to Otherworld. They are immediately right there in Camelot, in the throne room. Morgan Le Fay, Queen Regent, is there, explains to Captain Britain that, hey, I'm Queen Regent, you have to listen to me, and here's what's going on. The mutants, they are causing this, contamination of my scrying pool, so, I expect you to go bring them to me, but I wouldn't imagine that you would start off with your sister. So obviously he didn't know that she wanted him to bring back his own mutant sister and kill her, but she's musing as though that's exactly what he did. Apocalypse finds out that Betsy and Brian Braddock, they entered the portal and went to Otherworld before coming to him, which obviously doesn't make him happy. But what he does is he actually enlists the help of Rogue, who also comes with Gambit. He is planning to use Rogue's power on the gate somehow in order to open it and retrieve Betsy and Brian, or who knows what's going to happen. Of course, like I said, Gambit is there with his wife Rogue. They do seem to be still married. which is a whole other thing. I'm not sure how they bridged the gap between all that, but nonetheless, here we are, back on track. Sorry about that. So Rogue does say, hey, yeah, I'll do this. No problem. I'll help. That's my friend, so I'm definitely going to help. And Gambit, like, threatens Apocalypse. Like, if anything happens to her, I'm going to kill you. And that's kind of funny, because even in the comic book, like, Apocalypse looks at him like, I'd like to see you try. Like, come on. Are you a stupid, Gambit? I know you're popular from the 90s. Of course not with me. But, come on. You take kinetic energy, you put them in the objects. And instead of even, like, carrying, like, rocks or pellets or something, you do it with cards that you have to, like, practice how to throw right. So, I don't know. Anywho, so, yeah, no way, Gambit. No way. Apocalypse can control shit on a molecular level. No, don't even try, Lover Boy. So back in Otherworld, of course, Captain Britain isn't going to be listening to any of this kill his own sister mutants bullshit from Morgan Le Fay, so obviously a battle between, Captain Britain and Betsy Braddock versus Morgan Le Fay and her goons. Unfortunately, Morgan does have control over Captain Britain, and she starts to take control. She eventually turns him into like this Dark Knight looking version of Captain Britain, and unfortunately he does attack Psylocke. Or, of course, that's wrong. You should call her Betsy. Okay, so here's where my big complaint about the story comes in. So, as we learned earlier, Apocalypse sent Betsy Braddock here to get Captain Britain to use his amulet, because it is a way that they can go in between Otherworld and Earth. So obviously that's a way for Psylocke to escape. So what happens? Well, her and her brother fight. And what is he using as a weapon? No, not that cool sword that's strapped to his back. He has the amulet wrapped around his fist and is punching at his sister. So right away, you know what's going to happen. You know that she's going to get a hold of the amulet, and that's going to kind of be a Deus Ex Machina. Either way, so in the middle of this scuffle where he's punching at his sister with the all-important amulet of Captain Britain, she uses one of her psychic swords and throws it at a portal. This is, of course, the other part of the portal that Apocalypse has in his observatory. Figuring that it's better to destroy the portal and prevent Morgan Le Fay or anything else from going into Krakoa from Otherworld, she elects to use her powers, use one of her psychic blade, and destroys the portal. Now, like I said, she destroys the portal. This is seen on the other side in Krakoa. It blows everybody back, but then after the portal explodes, there's these like strange flowers that came through the portal and are now there in Krakoa. And Rogue does she makes a real big mistake here and kind of reaches out and it touches her, and it starts to affect her in a way, completely changes her visage, and she's like almost a corpse now, but still alive. As I predicted, once she destroys the portal, it kind of blows her back. But, they all recover, her and the Dark Knight, Captain Britain, he recovers. But guess who has the amulet now? That's right, Betsy Braddock. Betsy Braddock now has the amulet. She puts it on, and a purple flash happens. So this purple flash happens. Then we go back to Krakoa. We see where Rogue is changed and is still almost like a corpse. This is, of course, really upsetting to Gambit. He starts to throw punches at Apocalypse. Of course, it's no problem for Apocalypse. Like I said earlier, that fight would just be a nothing burger. Apocalypse would wipe the floor with Gambit. But nonetheless, as this is going on, they get interrupted. And they are interrupted because, of course, Betsy put on the amulet, which transported her back to Krakoa, and she's no longer just Betsy Braddock anymore. She is now the new Captain Britain. So there we go. This issue showed us you know, what the conflict is to come. You know, obviously you've got Morgan Le Fay has control of Brian Braddock now, and you know that the new Captain Britain, Betsy Braddock, isn't going to let that slide. And of course, we see how and why she now has the mantle of Captain Britain once again. So there's an epilogue to this comic. Remember those witches from earlier that were in that haunted house, and Morgan Le Fay came to them and, you know, ordered them to get rid of the witch breeds, which is what she calls mutants. Well, we see the head of this group. She has somehow killed the other members, probably why they were Morgan Le Fay's servants back in the other world. But more interestingly, we see that she has these crystals, and she takes them to the coven Aqaba, which is significant because Apocalypse is head of Clan Aqaba. Back in Powers of 10, Moira was named Aqaba, and Aqaba is the name of the town where Apocalypse was born. So very, very mysterious and intriguing indeed. We'll definitely have to see how this affects things going forward. And does this mean that Apocalypse is about to make a big turn? Alright, well, I hope that you are enjoying my videos, those precious few that do watch them. Please tell your friends and share this on your social media. If you're not a subscriber, please consider becoming a subscriber. And again, you can hit that notification bell to always know when I upload something. If you want to interact with me, of course, put some comments down there. I'd love to talk to you. You can also follow me on Twitter at dsquare72. Until next time, guys, of course, New Mutants, and one that I'm really looking forward to. I'm looking forward to them all. The one I'm really, really looking forward to, because it's supposed to have Colossus in it at some point, X-Force. So New Mutants and X-Force comes out later this week. Be sure to check back here with the channel. I'll be reviewing those and talking spoilers about them as well. But until next time, guys, peace and love, and we'll see you again soon.